Loko lang tayo ng gobyerno natin paulit-ulit at lalo na lang Amerika. Next. Okay, number 4. Arbitration decisions are only binding between the parties involved. Okay? Not applicable to Vietnam, Malaysia, of course. And Taiwan, ROC, rejects the South China Sea arbitration. Remember, Taiwan, ROC, and the PRC have the same claim because the basis of the claim of Beijing is from the ROC. It was the ROC who created it in the 1930s, the 9-dash line. So hindi siya binding, no? It's not binding out, ganun ang arbitration, it's not binding outside the two of you. China rejects it, so it's only binding to us. So nobody cares. You know, kaya yung sinasabi ng Amerika, we will enforce, we will implement. Si kanino nyo i-implement? Diba kanino nyo i-implement? Binding lang naman yan sa Pilipinas saka sa China. China doesn't want it. So it's only binding to us. Next. And finally, nabanggit ni Sir yung 9-dash line. According to South China Sea arbitration, China cannot claim maritime rights on the basis of 9-dash line. But, okay, big but, wag mo na. But, okay, pwede ba magsulat dito? Itong 9-dash line na yan, how many times have you ever heard China refer to 9-dash line in its statements?
Zero.
Never.
Never.
Never. Because this is American propaganda. You will never ever hear China refer na, we will claim everything in the 9-dash line. Never. Actually, China already submitted the limits of its territorial sea in the United Nations Secretariat a long time ago. And it doesn't include the entire South China Sea. So where exactly did this come from? This comes from the United States. And then we kept on repeating it. But when you look at the actual statements of China, it doesn't say na the basis of our claim is the 9-dash line. It's incorrect. Because kaya nilagay ko ditong but, okay? So the South China Sea arbitration said na China cannot claim maritime rights on the basis of the 9-dash line. Totoo. Hindi rin naman sila nakiklaim the maritime rights based on the 9-dash line eh. But paragraph 272 of the decision states, ito, basahin ko muna verbatimly, saka ko explain. Finally, because the tribunal considers the question of historic rights with respect to maritime areas to be entirely distinct from that of historic rights to land, the tribunal considers it opportune to note that certain claims remain unaffected by this decision. In particular, the tribunal emphasizes that nothing in this award should be understood to comment in any way on China's historic claim to the islands of the South China Sea. Nor does the tribunal's decision that a claim of historic rights to living and non-living resources is not compatible with the convention limit China's ability to claim maritime zones in accordance with the convention on the basis of such islands. Okay, it's such a mouthful. Ano ibig sabihin nun? Can we go back to the map? Yung so ano ibig sabihin nito?
Map.
Yeah, yung may mga claims.
Yan.
The next one. Yes. Okay. So ano ibig sabihin nun? China, just like Vietnam, claims everything. Okay? So ibig sabihin, walang karapatan ng China mag-claim ng maritime rights on the basis of the 9-dash line. But the decision says na nothing in the award should be interpreted to mean na walang karapatan ng China to claim historic rights on the basis of the islands themselves. Nagets niyo ba yung difference? Okay? So, ibig sabihin, hindi tapos. Hindi na-resolve. Okay? Kaya, wala yung 9-dash line, but the 9-dash line is ghost, fiction. But the claim of China as well as Vietnam is based on historic occupation or whatever of the islands themselves. So ngayon, yung maritime rights na pwedeng makuha ng China is not on the basis of 9-dash line, but on the basis of the maritime entitlements of the features. Okay, dito na nagkatalo. Kasi the Philippines, everyone, before the China Sea arbitration decision, claims this as an archipelago. Ibig sabihin, it's a unit. Okay? Unit. So, pwedeng pakitanggal mo na itong para makita nila. So it's a hindi, pakitanggal yung yeah. So it's a unit. So ano ibig sabihin yan? Okay? So let's say ito yung mga individual features, okay? Now, if it is an archipelago, it is one unit. Okay? Like the Philippines, okay? We are one unit. So we can draw a baseline all over all our islands and determine our maritime entitlement from that baseline. Are you following me? Now, Marcos Sr. considered our claim over an archipelago. So the KIG is an archipelago. So it's a unit, you know, one unit. China's claim is Nansha Island is an archipelago. Vietnam's claim, ano bang tawag ng Trong Sa, Vietnam, archipelago. So lahat tayo, kiniklaim natin na iisa lang yung unit na yan. So why is this important? Because under international law, if it is a single unit, the fate of the principal features determine everything. So in terms of defense, I only need to occupy the principal feature and then that would determine the fate of the rest. Parang ang Pilipinas, if someone invades us, they just need to invade key areas and then that would determine the fate of the entire Philippines because it is a unit. South China Sea arbitration decision, hindi na siya unit. So, it's no longer a unit. No, you cannot so Marcos Sr.'s claim, yung PD 1596, I believe it's PD 1596, is not compatible with the South China Sea arbitration. Because PD 1596 is based on the idea that the KIG is an archipelago. The South China Sea arbitration says, no, this is not an archipelago. So ngayon, dahil hindi siya archipelago, ang maritime entitlement is no longer gonna be from the baseline of the entire unit, but from the individual features. Nagigets yun na. So kaya yung South China Sea arbitration, meron siyang ang dami-daming explanation kung anong status ng bawat feature under UNCLOS. Island ba yan? Rock ba yan? LTE ba yan? High tide elevation? Kasi all those features have different maritime entitlements. Ngayon, ang ginawa pa ng South China Sea arbitration, wala ditong islands. So all of them, yung mga LTE, mga high tide elevation, most of them are just rocks. So ibig sabihin, Wala na. Kasi may nangyari. Wala na to. Yung ano ni Marcos Senior, wala na. Hindi na siya islands. Bato na lang siya. So, yung Pag-asa Island, that's not Pag-asa. That's not an island under international law. If we're going to subscribe, if we're going to accept the South Chinese arbitration. So those people are just living on a rock.
So Sas, one important question at this point. Tinatanggap ng Philippine government yung arbitration. But China is not accepting it.
Vietnam is not accepting it as well.
So China can maintain its position that it's an archipelago.
Yes, just like Vietnam.
But Pilipinas cannot.
Can no longer maintain. Nagets niyo ba kung bakit kagaguhan to? So ngayon, di ba, noong archipelago,
Binura ni Carpio.
binura ng Aquino administration, binura ng mga Amerikano. Kasi sila rin ang... So, ibig sabihin nito, dati, noong Marcos Senior time, we only need go to Pag-asa. Kasi malaki yung Pag-asa eh. Go to several. And then we defend everything. Dahil hindi na siya archipelago. You need to defend individually.
So,
From our side.
sinisuisin natin ang kaso natin.
Oo. So you need to defend individually. Eh kasi hindi siya archipelago eh. So ilan yun? 20. So yung 20 ng Vietnam, para masabi mong sa iyan, you need to take individually.
Naputahin ni Junior si Senior.
Kaya nga sabi ko, it's impossible na tatanggapin nyo yan. Pag tinanggap nyo yan, you have to change our idea of defending the KIG. Because during the time of Marcos Sr., alam niyo yung ginagawa niya, you only need to occupy certain features, the principal features, in order to defend everything. Ngayon, Vietnam and China consider it as an archipelago. Kaya sila, they consider merong baseline all over it. And they claim maritime entitlements from that baseline. That's why China, you can see China going to the different areas because that's a way to defend their claim.
So, yung alam mo yung pili ni Marcos, bination sa archipelagic doctrine.
Yes.
So 200 mile limit. Hindi bination sa tinatawag na archipelago na decision ba? Hindi yun ang base. Kasi ang 200 mile limit, sakop ang Kalayaan Islands as part of the Philippine Territory. Yun ang base dyan. So, yung ginawa ni Marcos yan, impliedly, na-question ang right ng Malaysia na occupy ng territory dyan sa Kalayaan Islands. Kasi hindi sila adjacent sa 200 mile limit. Wala yung Malaysia. Ang Malaysia, pinanganak lang ng 1994. Eh, nung pinanganak ng 1994, wala pa silang lugar doon. Pwede pa silang mag-claim sa 200 mile limit, diretso ba? Sa territory. Hindi pa wala sila. Parang bonus lang na hindi.
Pero that wala rin PD 5096. We cannot maintain PD 5096 and accept the South China Sea arbitration at the same time.
Hindi.
It's impossible. Yeah.
Hindi tayo nag-ratify sa arbitration. Hindi natin nalambol yan kasi hindi nililipunay sa China.
Yeah, exactly. Pero that's the thing po eh na I think they never realize what they are doing or the consequence of what they were doing. So ngayon, it's either the Philippines reject the South China Sea arbitration, which would actually embarrassing.
Because our lawyers were not Filipinos. They were Americans and British.
They have a different interest.
Sa isip nila yung KIG.
Yes. Kaya ang ano nila, kaya yung sinasabi nila na walang karapatan yung China magpunta dyan. Actually, that's very incorrect. Kasi it is still a disputed area. So if it's a territorial contest, you would do everything in order to assert your territorial claim. So that's the way that China would do it. they would actually have more presence. And there's nothing illegal about it.
And since Pagasa is 308 nautical miles from Palawan, you cannot go to Pagasa without meeting a single Chinese ship.
Yes.
Because it's lampas na doon sa 200 nautical miles.
Ano nga yun? Even Vietnamese, there are a lot of Vietnamese ships there. Of course, and there's of course the naval base of Taiwan.
No bullying. There is just a coexistence of ships there.
Actually, what's happening, kasi ang ano kasi nila, there's bullying. Well, there is bullying if they are in our territory. But they're not in our territory. They are in a disputed area. So what's happening here is not bullying. There is a wrestling. There is a wrestling. Na-outmaneuver ka. Can you imagine si Pacquiao nagrereklamo, binubuli siya ng nakakasapak sa kanya ng mas maano. That's preposterous. Pero kasi nga, ang mga Pilipino, gustong-gusto nila yung drama na, alam mo yun, nabubuli. Hindi ka nabubuli. Wala ka lang talagang lakas na makipag-agawan. And you are just, parang you are spending all your resources here. Meanwhile, the eastern part of the Philippines, na wala tayong territorial dispute, we're not developing. Kasi, bakit tayo nagkakaganito? It's because of the Americans. There's nothing else that we can say. Di ba yung Benham rice? Nobody is even disputing our Benham rice claim. And we're not even doing anything in order to develop the Benham rice.
Ating na yun.
Yeah. Wala nga.
By UN award.
Wala nga it's never disputed by anyone, etc. And we're not doing anything. And then gusto-gusto natin, dito tayo na parang, it doesn't make any sense.
By the way, sa Benham rice, hindi ko malaman kung ano na kaya ng Pilipino. In-include niya Taiwan sa joint venture agreement. Sabi niya, bakit ka sasabi na, wala ka yan. Bakit mo sa mapa yan? Kaya nasira doon si Lemicio.
Yeah, pero I think kasi may gusto mag-develop din ng US-based Benham rice. Anyway, so ngayon, so to conclude, yung binagdidiwang nilang South China Sea arbitration, it actually created more trouble for the Philippines than resolved anything. So, in short, we actually paid for more trouble for our countries rather than resolve anything. Kaya nga this will never fly in the United Nations. Actually perhaps the BBM administration should actually allow Ontiveros to do her thing so that she would be embarrassed internationally, na parang makuha na nila yung gusto nila kasi parang the South Chinese arbitration is not embarrassing enough for them. They want more embarrassment, and I think they should be given that if that's what they want. So thank you po, and next na tayo.
Thank you, Ms. Rogando Sasso, for giving us that brilliant crash course on territorial claims and exposing the sham arbitral ruling. We appreciate your insights very much. Let us hope that our government heed your appeals and your important documented research.
I just want to announce that there's lunch, garlic rice and drinks.
Yes, there's lunch for everyone, garlic rice and drinks for everyone here. Thank you again to all our media friends who participated here in UP.
I'm going to ask because we need to distribute my card. Kasi po, excuse me, sabi ko, gusto ko ready. Bakit ba pinag-aasaya nila siya? Hindi naman nakuha ng jurisdiction ng arbitration na.
Hindi na China eh. At ito na ito pinapansin. Sandali, Rod, before sa likod po ng calling card ko may QR code. So when you, can you explain that QR code?
Yeah, yung QR code, pag nag-scan po kayo, nandun po yung latest na videos and articles po namin. And then other yung contact information.
Yeah.
And then yung nakalive po din po tayo ngayon. So nasa YouTube, Facebook din.
Yung
Feel free
mga
to
articles po, pwede namin
download, copy.
So, isasama din natin yung mga articles ni Sasot doon sa QR code na yun. So, it's continuously updated if you want to get the latest articles on this issue. Yeah, so anyway, questions na sa inyo sa audience?
Any questions from the media? Please introduce yourself and where your network is.
Visitor's office po from European Philippines. First question po is, what is your reaction po dun sa statement ng mga opisyalis ng Pilipinas na walang kinalaman yung mga military exercises between US and Philippine military sa allegedly na pangharas po ng Chinese Coast Guard sa mga Philippine Coast Guard natin or Chinese vessels po?
Okay, I think sinong nagbitaw ng statement na yan?
From military,
I think the military should should stop this dilly-dallying. Alilawin naman, ang gulo-gulo nila na parang sabi nila yung military exercise nila ay walang kinalaman sa harassment daw ng China. So what is it for? So what is their military exercise for? What are they preparing for? Who is the enemy of the Philippines? Di ba? Well, is it for the CPP and PA? Ilan na lang ata ang CPP? Ilan na lang ata ang NPA sa Pilipinas, no? Na parang it can also already be devolved into a police problem. yung NPA. So who is the military exercise for? Military exercise for? Which war are they preparing for? We only know what one war that is possible to be fought in our region, and it is the war between China and the Philippines. So sino ba? Yun yung ano dito na on one hand, I think it's the statement is giving us hope that they are finally realizing na what they're doing is bad for our country. Kasi if they really believe that they would like to fight China head on, they could easily say that this is in preparation for Chinese invasion and aggression or whatever. But now they are now saying that has nothing to do with it. Then maybe they should clarify, what is it about then? Why are you why do you have these military exercises? Because if you just want our soldiers to be trained, well, why don't you just send them to the United States and be trained there? Obviously, it is the Americans who want to be trained in the Philippines so that they would know our terrain. Because our terrain is closer to the terrain of Taiwan. Simple as that. Because if it's really for our soldiers to improve whatever capabilities they have, intelligence, etc., they can train anytime in the United States. Because we don't have enemies. Bakit naman tayo magkakaroon ng ganitong military exercises if we don't have enemies?
Thank you, Ms. Valdes. I'd like to give the floor over to Professor Ana Malindogoy. She's raising her hand via Zoom.
Okay. Thank you so much for recognizing me, moderator. Tama si Sase. Ang tanong kasi dyan, ang issue kasi dito is...
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on.
Dali lang, hindi ka pa
Okay lang.
Sorry, comment.
Sabihan ako kung okay na. Okay na?
Audio.
Third world pa tayo sa ating technology Okay? Okay, ganito yon. Ang ano ko naman, I actually agree with the question of SAS. Ano ba talaga? Kasi in the very first place, kung titignan mo ang nangyayari sa Pilipinas, not just the EDCA, and even all of these things like Air Force, American Air Force is flying into the Philippines, going through the different EDCA sites. Ano ginagawa nila sa Pilipinas? What is it really for? So yun yung mga tanong, kasi wala naman kasing transparency din nangyayari and accountability. And even questions of Filipino people cannot be answered properly. Walang explanation. So nalilito ang Pilipino kung ano ba talaga ang purpose. Why do you have that extensive and intensive military exercises, prepositioning of military assets in the country? What is it for? Hindi naman for local insurgency yan kasi hindi naman ganun kalakas na ang CPP and PA. Are we preparing for what? Are we, ano bang piniprepare ba tayo for what? Yun yung malaking tanong kasi na hanggang ngayon hindi sinasagot at walang explanation binibigay. So kung gusto ng current administration, this question will not be raised over and over again. Probably the right thing to do is provide explanation properly. And then give us a little of, respect as Filipinos kung ano ba ang ginagawa natin sa bansa natin. Kasi baka mamaya paggising natin, nasa gitna na tayo ng gera. Yun eh. So, ang hirap ng mga ganyang statement kasi lalong lumalabo, imbis na klaraduhin nila, lumalabo. I mean, I understand that we have the BFA, we have the MDT, and all of this military agreements and defense agreement with the United States. But I don't think these are absolute in every sense. I think there are limits to it and there are boundaries. Ang tanong, bakit din parang walang upper hand ang ating bansa at ang current government when it comes to this military exercises. And even to some extent, we're being militarized as a country. Yun yung mga bagay na dapat linawin ng current administration if they really want the Filipino people not to ask questions and not to be, wondering why things are happening like this. Hindi naman kasi blind tayo at hindi rin naman tayo mga stupid people not to see what is going on. These are not rocket science. Even a high school student can figure it out kapag binasa niya at tinitingnan niya kung ano nangyayari. So yun yung yun yung pakiusap ko lang sa ating existing administration that, we deserve an explanation about these things. I think every Filipino deserve that. That's my answer to the question. Thank you.
So you can extend the time, because that's not my question.
Thank you, Professor Ana Uy, for your answer. Great answer.
Pick up your lunchbox outside. Go to lunch.
Okay, any further questions from the media? Please introduce yourself.
May question ba dito?
Since yung SONA po is on one day na po, what is ano po yung inaasahan mo na sasabihin ng Pangulong Marcos ngayon sa SONA?
Well, ano ba inaasahan ko? Kung anong I think ila-launch na yung bagong Pilipinas na branding. Hindi naman kasi mag-branding na. And ako to be honest, I would like him to report to the nation on what actually we gained from his decision on EDCA. Kasi yung balita sabi more Chinese bullying. Di ba doon yung pangako niya pag nagkaroon ng pag additional EDCA sites would deter China. Bakit may balita ka na more bullying? So ibig sabihin, it's a failure. So dapat itigilan natin tong solusyon na to. Ano pang gagawin natin para magtagumpay yan? Saka I'm not really sure what I want to hear from the SONA kasi kasi before naman kasi ng SONA dapat may mga naririnig tayong mga nangyayaring maganda. May mga nangyayari namang maganda but it's not I think hindi the expectation and the reality do not match that well under his administration. And I think he should explain why is that so. I think naman everyone deserves that explanation.
Well, I am hoping, but I am hoping against hope that he can still reverse the policy of accepting these new bases, which is now numbered 17. Hindi lang 10 po, kundi 17 na. At hindi natin masabi kung ilan po ang bubunga pa sa mga susunod na panahon. Si Presidente Duterte mismo ay nagsabi na sobrang marami na yung 17. And when is this going to stop? So I would wish that for the sake of the Filipino nation, maibalik na niya yung patakaran sa ating ugnayang panlabas doon sa independent foreign policy.
Yeah.
Kita natin nung panahon ni Presidente Duterte, yung ating narinig dati na equidistant, parehong distansya sa China at sa Estados Unidos. Hindi po tulad ngayon na nakapasok na naman po tuloy-tuluyan ang Amerika sa Pilipinas. Naiulat ko sa inyo yung mga problema at yung mga kapinsalaan na ating aktual na nadadanas na po dahil sa pagkalapit ulit ng Pilipinas sa Estados Unidos. Hindi tayo makagalaw doon sa mga programa para sa development ng ating ekonomiya, ating infrastruktura. Hindi na makagalaw ang tubig, yung ating project for the Kaliwa Dam. Yung ating turismo ay napipinsala ng napakatindi po itong taon na ito dahil po yung loss of the Chinese market due to the sabotage of the Chinese tourism market by some American elements in our Department of Foreign Affairs. Yung pagkakalason ng ating academic climate sa mga academic communities po natin. So kung hindi gawin po yan ni Presidente Bongbong Marcos, which I expect he will not do anything about it, dahil as has been said, he's a weak president, then it's the people, the Filipino people that should do something about it.
Let me reply as well, no?
May pahabol ako. Ang gusto ko marinig
okay.
sa SONA ni PBBM is that he finally rejected the request of the United States
Yes.
for the Philippines to house the
Afghan.
Afghan special immigrant US visa applicants. So I think that's what I want to hear. No, na ni-reject niya na yung request ng United States.
Let me give my perspective, no? Okay ba?
Go ahead.
Okay. First, tinanong din ako actually ng isang media outlet on this. Ano daw ba ang expectations ko at anong gusto kong marinig sa SONA, which would happen on Monday. First and foremost, I think despite the fact that I have really reservation in terms of achievements ng current administration during the first year of PBBM, kasi sa dami ng kontrobersiya since the beginning, no? Kaano pa lang yan ng kanyang hindi pa nga siya ata nag-3 months sa kanyang pagkakaupo bilang presidente. Ang dami-daming controversies. I want an explanation to all of these things, especially when you talk about agriculture and then yung foreign policy niya. Ano ba talaga ang direction niya? Kasi they claim that we do have an independent foreign policy. Lahat ng mga, I think, personally, I've witnessed that many times over, no, from the president himself and other officials of government. But I want to know what is it really all about, because on the ground I don't see it really. So I want, for the benefit of the doubt of the current administration, gusto kong marinig yun. What do you mean by that? In concretely, paano mo nasabing independent foreign policy ka when you have all of the manifestations that the foreign policy of the Philippines is leaning towards the United States or has pivoted already. At least on my side, I really still have that kind of reserve, meron pa akong space to before I make my own conclusion about all these things. Nandun pa ako sa level na I'm trying to give the current administration the benefit of the doubt, really, on my side. Another one is, gusto ko malaman, ano ba talaga ang rebranding na yan ng Bagong Pilipinas? At yung mga sinasabi nila about Bagong Pilipinas, in what sense? Kasi I don't see really the change that they're talking about. I want to be clear about it. Another thing, I want an explanation as well about the Air Force. Anong nangyayari dyan? Bakit may ganon? Bakit parang walang explanation na mabuti? At ano tawag nito, parang it's an assault to the sovereignty of the Philippines. Assault yan sa soberenya ng Pilipinas eh. Another thing is the ICC. Ano ba ang stand ng current administration on the ICC issue na binabato sa Pilipinas na ngayon 2 Duterte ang nai-involve? The current VP and the former president, and we are not party to the ICC. So ano ang stand ng current government on that? And that is in the hand of the president. Kasi siya ang architect ng foreign policy. At the end of the day, sa kanya manggagaling ang decision. That's a very, very critical issue that the current administration has to make a concrete stand and, you know, give us Filipinos a solid explanation and stand on this issue. Kasi ano yan eh, for me, it's really challenging the sovereignty of the country if the ICC will push further investigation whatsoever. So that's one. And also, ano yung explanation sa tourism video fiasco? Kasi alam niyo, marami akong nabasa ng mga reports, not just in the Philippines, pati sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo. So ano ba talaga ang explanation doon? Wala bang investigation? Nothing happens and we just all forget about this? So parang ganun, there are a lot of issues that needs explanation. And I think Filipino people deserve to hear the explanation on all of these issues. And of course, I want to hear as well kung ano ang achievement ng current administration when you talk about economic development and prosperity. Mayroon ba? That one is I'm very interested as well. So that's my answer to the question. Thank you. Back to the moderator.
Thank you, Professor Ana Malindogoy, Ms. Sas Rogando Sasot, and Mr. Herman Laurel for your answers on the media question regarding the SONA this Monday. Are there any other further questions from the media, from our media friends?
From anyone.
From anyone?
Ayun daw.
Bali, kasi mukhang wala tayong nakukumbinse yung fear-mongering at saka war-mongering ng US. Mukhang talagang pupunta tayo sa gere. Bilang analistas, kailan sa tingin mo mangyayari yung gera na yun? Kasi mukhang wala tayong magagawa eh. Mukhang doon talaga tayo papunta eh. 2028, 2030?
Well, according to the National Security Strategy of the United States ng 2022, ang tinitingnan nilang window period ay 10 years. So 2022 to 2032 na kailangan daw nilang makagawa ng mga decisive turns para ma-maintain ng United States ang kanilang position sa mundo. So kung ano yung mga decisive turns o mga decisive factors na kailangan nilang gawin, I think all bets are on the table, and that includes war. Now, I think, you know, the United States and its think tanks, its even US Congress has been wargaming a future war in our region between the United States and China. And we are already actually being primed. The Economist, you know, the magazine The Economist, they released economic intelligence, the EIU, Economic Intelligence Unit, released a report and already determined the countries that would be at risk if there's a war that would break out between China and the United States. And South Korea, Japan, and the Philippines were identified as particularly at more risk of a preemptive strike from China. So sa wargaming nila, there are 3 different dates, no, na pinapresent: 2026, 2027. Kasi I think the farther, kasi this all depends on whether the United States will ever accept that it's no longer number 1.
Mawawala yung petrodollar pag hindi na sila number 1. Mawawala yung
Yeah, but that's the thing. The stability of the world depends on the United States being humble. So yun. The stability of the world depends on the United States being humble enough to accept that it's no longer number 1. And pero ako, for me, we would know the definite shape of world politics after January 2024. Because that's the election in Taiwan. So if it's the Kuomintang that wins, maybe we would still be able to live, a little bit longer. But if it's not the Kuomintang, may God have mercy on all of us.
So, nabanggit ni Madam Sasot yung Taiwan elections. No? Idadagdag ko naman yung American elections in 2024 November. Kasi po, at the rate things are going, the warmongering political parties sa US is really aggressively now the Democrats, no? At si Biden. Si Trump has been forced to come out and say that he will stop the Ukraine war in one day when he becomes president and so on and so forth. But that doesn't mean that the US deep state will not keep pushing for war. Second point ko, at the state of things now in the United States and its war plans, mukhang hindi nila makakaya talaga manggera ng ibang bansa at lalo-lalo na laban sa China itong 2025 or 2027 because even today, the US industrial machinery is not ready to supply the requirements of Ukraine in its war against Russia. It is still behind in hypersonic missile technology. They had a recent test which failed the United States. So the reality is, although I do not want to downplay the war possibility from the US in the next 2-3 years, the fact is, in all-round corporation wargaming, they have never won a single one against China in the Asian region. This is confirmed by, if you listen to interviews of Colonel McGregor ng United States, former advisor ng ni President Trump sa military affairs, former Marines Scott Ritter, Brian Berletic, who are very actively against the Ukraine war and reporting on the status of the military capabilities of NATO in the United States. Hindi nila kaya manalo sa China in this region. So but of course, China's attitude is hope for the best, but keep your powder dry. So ang China po has now a bigger navy than the United States, 340 surface ships, not counting the submarines, versus the United States 300 surface warships. Merong mga Amerikano na dina-downgrade po yung kanilang view of the Chinese Navy dahil daw 10% of that or a big part of that, 100 ships of the 340 ships are Coast Guard. But as you may have come across the report this past few days, the mother of all Coast Guard ships that came out into the scene in the South China Sea to show its force, can easily be converted to warships anytime. So maraming complicated reasons why, as if you ask military experts today if the United States is capable of a war and winning a war in Asia, most factors would point to the situation where the Americans cannot win a war and would not start the war yet. No?
We are talking about conventional war of the US.
Yes.
Pero hindi natin pinag-uusapan ng nuclear.
Yeah.
Yung ginagawa sa US is as assuming all conventional na nuclear.
Yeah. Okay. Ihabol ko in response to that. No? So the assumption is the US will not start a nuclear war. As we can see also in Ukraine, pagdating doon sa threat ng Russia that they are crossing a red line and may allow Russia to escalate into the use of even tactical nuclear weapons, umaatras ang Estados Unidos. Kaya in the last NATO summit sa Vilnius, Biden very clearly said hindi tatanggapin sa NATO ang Ukraine kasi red line yun. Unless a crazy man assumes the presidency of the United States, we can assume that they're rational. Titigil sila doon sa boundary of a nuclear war. Ano? So anyway, give the mic now to Sasot.
I think the United States will not go directly to war with China. Just like it has not directly went to war against Russia. So dito sa region natin, it's going to be the same strategy. It will only use proxies to fight a war against China, because I think the overall intention of the United States is not necessarily to defeat China, because they cannot do that, but only to weaken China. And those are two different kinds of war. So there are wars that you would like to totally defeat the enemy, and then there are wars that you just want to kneecap the enemy. And I think that's what the United States is aiming for. And of course, we already see kung sino yung mga potential proxies, no? Taiwan, the Philippines. I think it's egging India, no, to be a proxy as well, and maybe Vietnam as well, no? Naghahanap na ng mga pwedeng potential proxies. And I think among all of them, I think tayo yung pinaka sa atin yung pinakamatindi yung propaganda na dine-develop yung tinatawag na war mindset. Na we are being primed to hate. Diba? Na sobrang hate. I think it's palpable. I worked under Clarita Carlos sa NSC. In the Aquino administration. That's why there are a lot of diplomats during the Aquino administration who were marginalized and were threatened to be removed from service because they are not against China. As simple as that. You know, so I think it's not gonna be a head-on collision between the United States and China. Kasi may hypersonic missiles na, no? May ICBMs na. Kung gusto maki-join ng there's no guarantee now that the war will not reach US mainland kung magkaroon ng head-on collision ang China and the United States. So I think the United States will use proxies. And I'm really worried that tayo yung parang para tayong napili sa bingo na pwedeng mauna, which makes sense, no? Na tayong mauna kasi we're the most dispensable US pawn. We're nothing in the, we're nothing in the geo-economic order of the world. When we're gone, nobody would even notice, I think. So I think yun yung nakakaano na tayo yung minamanipulate in order to hate this much. Kasi at least sa Taiwan, di ba, meron pang mga cooler heads, meron kang kumintang na against, na dito wala eh. Kita mo lahat ng senator, parang gusto mo, akala mo yung mga anak nila iaalay nila sa gera, di ba?
Yeah, I have to add this one last thing. No? Ang objective nga ng Estados Unidos ay hindi patalo ang China. Tulad ngayon sa Russia, sa Ukraine. They've tested Russia. They now know they cannot defeat Russia at this point in time. But what have they achieved? They've achieved, one, the destruction of the European Union economy and the German economy. Now they have incentives for German industry to go to the US instead of helping Germany. Ang target ng Estados Unidos sa gera sa Asia ay ma-depress ang Asia as an economic rival to the West. Hello? And I think it's very clear that the Americans have a program to revive their economy by stealing German industry to go to the United States. Now that the They have no chance of getting cheap Russian oil because the German economy was built on cheap Russian oil. And that is what they want to do in Asia. The target is not just China, but the target is the whole Asian economy. So like in Ukraine, they're fighting Ukraine to the last Ukrainian. Yun din ang gusto nilang gawin sa Pilipinas. No? Fight to the last Filipino and last drop of blood of Filipinos. See, may question.
Let me,
Austin.
very quick
Professor
lang. Okay,
Go ahead,
very
go ahead.
quick. Okay. One thing that I want to emphasize, no, I don't think any countries in Asia would want to have a war. That's one thing I can say, I think, at this time, no. And even China, I don't think so, because that would be counterproductive to the rise of China as an economic giant in the world. But one thing also we have to remember is China will defend its integrity and as a country, I think, and especially when you cross red lines. And one of the red lines that's very much hot at this time na kailangan isipin mabuti ng current administration na sana hindi tayo gamitin ay ang Taiwan Strait. So I think that's one point. Second is we don't have problem with China really when it comes to issues. Ang isa lang dyan is ang pinakaano lang talaga critical na nagkakaroon tayo ng gitgitan is the South China Sea. But even this issue, I don't think it would lead to like military confrontation between our two countries. I don't see it. Only if we will allow the Americans to push us into that kind of situation. So it's very, very important for the current administration to really see ano ba talaga ang direksyon nyo at kung ano ba talaga ang dapat mangyari at dapat para sa Pilipinas. Kasi kung ang Pilipinas lang will strike a balance between its relation with the United States and China, then probably will be spared by any kind of war plans that the United States are planning against China. Second, I agree with Sas. Hindi yan magiging direct confrontational war if in any case a war breaks out in the Asia-Pacific region, either via using the Taiwan Strait issue or the South China Sea. Hindi yan directly na confrontation between the two superpowers. It will be a proxy war. And isa sa kinatatakutan ko, I'll be very straightforward, is tayo ang nasa front row na baka gamitin as proxy. Okay, yun yung problema, either sa South China Sea or Taiwan. So I think the most important for us is to come up and really to calibrate our foreign policy, that it should, I'm not saying that we don't have any relationship with the United States, because that would be impossible, especially under this administration. But what I'm saying is strike a balance, stick to that equidistance na mayroon ang Duterte administration. And balance your relationship and take a hold of your country, especially when you talk about military, na hindi tayo dapat yung decision making, yung mga boundaries na dapat i-observe ng United States in our relation with them, since we have the MDT still, we have the BFA, and we have all of these agreements with them. We need to have an upper hand. That's why it's very important for the current administration to think through EDCA. Kasi ang EDCA may window of opportunity pa, hindi pa, nasa level pa tayo na pwede tayong mag-decide. Either we disregard it really totally because 2024 next year, nandun tayo sa point na yun. Second is, if in any case, tali ang government, at least try to take a look at those agreements, those provisions in EDCA and put it in a way that would be advantage for us, not that it will be under the control or semi-control of the United States. Yun eh. Kasi at the end of the day, pag nagkagit-gitan at nagkaroon ng problema at naging proxy tayo sa whatever kind of gera na gagawin, well, 10 years from now or 15 years from now, doesn't matter. No? Eh, sino naman ang kawawa doon tayo? And after that, would we exist still as a country? Yun yung mga tanong kasi na dapat binibigyan ng importansya at reflection. Kasi may time to maneuver eh. There's time to maneuver, there's time to change things. There's time to to adjust. Yun eh. Pero ang time kasi it's ticking as well. Mabilis ang oras eh. So kailangan siguro natin pag-isipan tong mga to. Yun yung sinasabi ko lang, no? Parang ang hirap ng sitwasyon kasi nasa gitna tayo eh. So sana alisin natin yung sarili natin na magiging target tayo or magagamit tayo ng whatever kind of military confrontation that might break out in either in the South China Sea or the Taiwan Strait. Nasa kamay natin yon, and we can do it as an independent sovereign country if we have to stand on it. Kasi sino ba ang magtatanggol sa Pilipinas kung di ang Pilipino? So yun eh. We have to be wise this time around. Yeah. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Yeah. Okay. Magandang umaga sa mga napag-usapan, sang-ayon ho tayo. Yung mga tinalaki kanina ng mga eksperto natin, for those who are not following, you should be following SAS Rogando Sasot For the Motherland and yung Asia Century on Facebook and YouTube. No? Kasi about the mind conditioning na binanggit nga ni SAS kanina, nakita natin ito yung pagbisita ni former President Duterte, di ba, sa Beijing. Even when Biden demonizes China, the following week or the following month, the richest billionaires from the US, si Elon Musk, si Bill Gates, si Tim Cook, tapos yung si Blinken, si central banker US Yellen, tapos si John Kerry pumunta ng Beijing. 'Di ba? Pero yung sa atin, pag kakaibigan natin si China, dinimonize agad yung pagbibisita ni former President Duterte. No, so nakikita natin yung mind conditioning talaga is already at play, no, number one. Number two, yung mga ibang sinasabi ngayon na yung mga prinamis daw ni China o yung mga proyekto na binanggit ni China or prinamis ni China sa panahon ni Duterte ay hindi pa i-deliver. So gusto lang po natin itong ma-share, itong partial list lang to, no, ng mga benepisyo na nakuha natin. Kasi itong mga South China Sea issue, di ba? Ano ba talagang pakinabang ng taong bayan dyan? Di ba? Ang totoong pakinabang dyan ay trabaho. Di ba? Nung panahon ni Duterte, over 100,000 Filipino jobs dahil sa mga proyekto ng China dito sa Pilipinas. No? Yung mga dinonate ng China ng mga medical supplies, ng mga vaccine na nakatulong sa maagang pagbubukas ng ekonomiya natin. At maraming mga hindi nababanggit na donasyon, no? Katulad ng dalawang tulay dyan sa Intramuros, Binondo at Mandaluyong, Makati na humahalaga na over $150 million. 'Di ba ang sinasabi ng media natin yung 80 million or 100 million US dollars na bibigay ng US para diyan sa EDCA bases na yung 100 sabihin na natin $100 million para lang yan sa pagbubuo ng mga struktura na yung US din makikinabang and will become the targets of the US enemies, no. Tapos over 10,000 tons of rice, no, binigay ng China doon sa mga bagyo na biktima ng mga bagyo, no, nung recent years. So marami ito hindi nabibigay, so mahalaga yung mga media friends natin na bigay ng space para sa mga ganitong maibanggit, no. At huling pangdagdag lang, we don't even have to talk about yung mga yung military exercises kasi former Secretary of Foreign Affairs Cayetano in a Senate hearing revealed that China has missiles in Hainan that can reach the Philippines in 6 minutes yata or 10 minutes, no. So ang laban ngayon ng gera hindi na yung tutukan o yung barilan ng harapan, ang laban ngayon drone, 'di ba? Yung cyber warfare, yung space warfare. So hindi natin minsan nabibigyan ng tamang pagpapansin yung mga ganitong bagay. But as our experts mentioned, we just have to learn from Ukraine, 'di ba? Over 350,000 of their people have died, no, for a stupid war that both sides have warned, no, na ito lang yung gusto nilang kondisyon, bigyan na kami ng security guarantee, at yung over 20% of the territory of Ukraine have already been lost, no. So marami tayong mga pwede pang pag-usapan. Maraming salamat.
Meron lang question from the chat. Zoom. Okay, this is from Cathy Cruz. Knowing all the facts being laid out today, obviously, nagtetenggang kawali, tengang kawali, ba ang ibig sabihin nito, no? Ang liderato. Yeah. Do you have any other means to once and for all end these lies on the West Philippine Sea, like filing a position paper or formal complaint with the Supreme Court? Sas?
Well, sabi, do you have any other means to once and for all end these lies on West Philippine Sea? Well, stop electing liars. As simple as that. You know, do we have a means? Actually, we don't, you know, because there's so much money to be made because of these lies. How much money do you think? Baka naman siguro mapatay ako sa'yo. How many of high-ranking military officials do you think we have that have their families na nasa Amerika na? Or may green card? How many of them are na kumikita pangkabuhayan? No, malaki magbigay ang United States. You know, it's a very generous country. To be fair, it's a very generous country in terms of charity. It gives a lot. You know, in the United Nations, it's the #1 funder of peacekeeping operations, and it extends to everything. You know, during the Cold War, that's what the United States did. It bribed everyone, you know, to side to the United States. Ang hindi nga lang nila na-bribe dito sa region natin, and I will say it categorically, is Lee Kuan Yew. The rest, they were bribed. So that includes Marcos Sr. No? So it's only Lee Kuan Yew who refused bribes from the United States, and it was actually documented. So ganyan din ngayon. Because we are in a new Cold War. You know, ang enemy lang ngayon is China, and it will bribe everyone to hate China. There's so much money to be made and to be earned when you hate China. Kami nga lang, Diyos ko, ako nga lang, kung gago lang talaga ako laki-laki ng platform ko. Di ba, laki-laki ng platform ko. Ano ba naman yung gumawa ko na dito ng post na anti-China post every minute? Baka naman mabili ko na lahat ng bill. Baka ako naman fan sa Maharlika Investment Fund.
Oh, Maharlika Investment Fund, isa pa yan.
Diba? Kita nyo itong forum natin na against sa United States. Hindi naman, ewan ko kung nakikita to ng mga tao kung gaano ka shabby. I'm sorry UP but it's shabby. Look how shabby our location is na hindi namin alam. Tingnan nyo yung mga events sponsored by the US Embassy, US State Department. Maraming events yan dito. May pa-cocktails pa sila afterwards. Hotel accommodation. Yung speaker lang naman nila. Taga dito lang naman sa, ano ba yan? Sa TAF lang naman yung di ba, Ana?
Oo. Totoo yan.
Ang masahe ko papunta dito hinanapan pa ng paraan pa ni Kamentong para makakuha ng pera.
Hinanapan pa ng paraan para lang mabigyan ka pamasahe.
Mahal mag-grab papunta dito sa UP, no? Tingnan mo na yung pagkain. Yung mga pa-event ng United States, may paano yan, may pa-cocktails, may formal event pa sila, may black, black tie event pa. Lahat, di ba? Kaya sinasabi ko sa inyo, kung gago lang talaga ako, ay nako, napakadaling kumita ng pera para lang magsabi ng, I love Uncle Sam, I love Uncle Sam. Siguro baka siguro automatic green card ako, Ana, no? Kung nagganyan-ganyan.
Oo, hindi lang yan. Baka mabili mo yung buong Manila.
Oo, kaya, tingnan mo naman yung platform ko, no? Laki-laki at millions ang nakikinig sa akin. Paano kung gamitin ko yan sa ganyang paraan? Pero nandito tayo sa kaya nga bagong Pilipinas, di ba, may prinsipyo, may isang salita. Yun talagang bagong Pilipinas. Kaya nga, pagmasdan yung mabuti, yung mga nangyayari. Diyos ko, ilang kami nag-apply ng scholarship ng PhD sa China, hanggang ngayon nga, wala nga. Baka ma-reject pa ako. Pero pag sa US ka nag-apply.
Nako, sigurado ka with all the amenities and all of the,
Bigla yan, Ana. Baka hindi lang. Baka bigyan na ako ng degree kagad.
Hindi lang yan. Baka bigyan ko yung hotel. Mismo yung bahay mo. Hotel na. Hindi na dorm. Ako kasi nasa dorm.
So much money that the United States is allotting for everyone to hate China. That's just the truth.
Nung nakaraang taon, 2022, in 2022, the US Congress passed the Competition Act, no? Na dinagdagan nila ng $500 million for anti-China propaganda. So $500 million, we can see it in operation now. But my personal experience, of course, I used to be invited to the US ambassador's residence, have dinner, and so on. By 2001, mga bata pa kayo. By 2001, pinutol na nilang relationship sa akin dahil kita nila hindi ako ma-recruit. No? And after that, a few years later, ang mainstream media naman po, dito sa Pilipinas, shut out din ako, boycott. Akala natin, and this is no reflection on the reporters, it's hanap buhay. But the owners are really controlled by the Americans also. My 15-year-old 700 episode na satellite TV show was stopped this last week after 700 shows. Because tulad ng sunod-sunod na from SAS and SMNI and so on, pati kami na maliit na satellite TV pero na tie up na sa Sky Cable kaya talagang lumalawak ng aming audience, biglang pinutol. So don't think the mainstream media here is a free media. The fact that President Duterte as an ex-president says so many things that does not appear in the big newspapers and broadcast network shows you na kontrolado yung mga yan ng Amerikano rin. We can explain the economics behind the control of our mainstream media, but we do not have the time right now. But, yeah.
Bigyan ko lang kayo ng example, no? Di ba yung visit ni PRRD? Then suddenly, ANC News interviewed an ex-US Defense Department official, basically saying that Bongbong Marcos is on the right path. Gago ka pala, sabihin mo talaga on right path. Ex-US Defense official ka, ano sasabihin mo? Di ba? Bakit biglang may interview na ganun? Ex-US, US Defense official. Di ba, Ana? Ano ba yun?
Parang agad, cambio agad. And may sinabi pa na parang you're on the right direction but the United States has to do more. Has to do more. Parang ganun.
Has to do more daw. Ano pa ba?
Ano pa ba yung do more mo? Inaano na nga tayo. Kulang na nga lang. Pangalanan tayong Philippines-US.
Ano nga lang dapat, ano ba to? EDCA sites in every city. Pwede naman, di ba? Ayun na nga, kung makikita nyo, grabe yung pag-push nila ng agenda nila dito. Tomorrow pala, episode ko ng Statecraft, I interviewed si Einar Tangen. So he's like he's an American based in Beijing, and then he's sa Asian Arts. Pinag-uusapan namin the problem with China kasi is very bad in PR, no? Very bad soft power capabilities. I'm so sorry sa mga kaso natin sa China, but that's very true. But I think that's inherent kasi with the attitude of the Chinese that they're not really that like the Americans. Alam mo naman ng mga Americans, hi, hello, ganyan sila, di ba? Kaya mas magaling silang mambola yung mga Americans. Kaya kita mo, 'di ba? Si Bongbong ganyan lang si Bongbong, akala mo kulang na lang ibigay na lang niya lahat, no? Parang well, it's because it's the United States. If you lick the ass of the United States, you will get a Nobel Peace Prize. Ganun. Plus that, you're gonna be Time Person of the Year. They have all these pampalaki ng ulo benefits, no? Which the United States is the only country in the world that does that gives all these candies for the egos. And other countries do not have that actually, no? They don't have much time and it's just not part of their culture. So kaya itong sinasabi na meron pa bang ibang magagawa? Well, actually, the greatest enemy of the United States is an educated population. That's their greatest enemy. That's why Europeans don't like them. They don't like Americans. Hindi sila mabalis mabola ng mga Amerikano. Although nakikipag-futsi-futsi lang yung mga Europeans sa United States because it's the United States that finance their defense. And because of that, they can give generous social welfare benefits to their population. Now, if Trump wins and then Trump says we will abolish NATO, magkakagulo dun sa Europe kasi kailangan nilang magbayad na for the very first time ng defense nila. That's the truth of it. But they don't like the United States, for a lot of reasons. Tayo, we're not that educated. Our people are not that educated. Our public school system is it's not so much better than the public school education system than our grandmothers and grandfathers had. Ano, yun yung problema. It's only and look at the media. Buti na nga lang wala na yung Channel 2, but they kept on appearing. For the longest time, the show made the people dumb. Nobody would claim that they watch Channel 7 and they become more intelligent, or they watch Channel 2 and they become more intelligent, because they don't show anything that will make you intelligent. It will make you entertained, and that's the most difficult thing. And that's the time that your brain starts to shrink, when you're just being entertained. Kaya nga, there's really nothing we can do here, but hopefully that our words will reach the conscience of our politicians, and that finally in the history of the Philippines they will start to think more of the Filipinos than their bank accounts and pockets and offshore accounts, and their assets in the United States and Europe, and their dream of getting a US visa and Schengen visa, because that's all boils down to. They cannot be like Duterte, who can have a head-on collision with the West, because number one, Duterte doesn't have any assets in the West. Any assets outside the Philippines. Andito lang yung mga assets niya sa Pilipinas. So hindi siya takot. Hindi siya takot maka-sanction. Pangalawa, wala naman siyang interest magka-US visa at magka-Schengen visa, no? And a lot of our politicians are actually afraid that if they started to speak against the United States, they will not be able to get a US visa. And every one of them wants to go to the United States. And I don't understand why, because it's a very ugly country. I've been to it's really an ugly country. There's nothing there. My God, why do you want to go to the country where McDonald's was born, or KFC? So, and everyone of them wants to go there, pero they have assets kasi, their family are living in the United States. They have assets in the United States, etc. Sorry, Robin, pag magsasalita ako, US visa was denied. I'm just gonna tell this openly. Sabi ni Robin, nung nag-apply daw siya, nananaman ng US Embassy, halos daw siya, itratong hari, inilibot pa daw siya sa mga EDCA, ganyan. And then eventually, his US visa was denied. And you know what else what they did? They actually terrorized their relative in the United States.
Oh, wow.
Ganyan kayo kabastos, kayong Amerikano kayo.
Tinador yan ang bansa natin, ha?
Oh, yun lang masabi ko, no? That's how that's how arrogant the Americans are. Can you imagine, nilibot-libot ka kasi didinay ka. Tapos tinerrorize pa yung kamag-anak mo nasa United States, The evil. It's a very evil country in the world. Oh my God. Kaya nga ang inaano ko how can you ever justify that you are pro-US? Pag tinatanong ako, ano ka ba, pro-US or pro-China, isa lang sabihin ko, well, one country stole 7,107 islands from our ancestors. They killed almost 1 million Filipinos. It's the first genocide of the 21st century. They exhibited our ancestors as if they are animals in zoos in New York. They stole a lot from the Philippines. My God, they even kidnapped the president, the father of the current president.
Absolutely.
Be out of my mind if I would say na I would consider that this country is the moral choice, because it will never be the moral choice, no? It is an insult to the blood of the 1 million Filipinos that this country killed, and that country is the United States of America. So kaya nga yung mga politiko dyan na habos himod ng puwet, mahiya naman kayo doon sa mga ancestors nating namatay para ipaglaban tong Pilipinas. Kayo dyan nangungurakot lang kayo, tapos ano bang di ba? Mahiya naman kayo sa mga Pilipinong namatay noon at pinatay ng mga Amerikano. Kahit nang man lang, pero we don't really expect that you would grow a conscience. But at least, at least grow some balls and spine if you don't have a conscience yet.
Okay. Danny, I think, meron pang tanong.
Last question ako. Since you mentioned the moral investment fund, since yung mga senator po natin nagsasabi na this will help the economy, masusulong nito ang kinabukasan ng Pilipinas, according po sa isang representative. hindi lang po ito open sa mga Pilipino na mag-co-investor but also sa foreign. Sa tingin niyo po ba ay makakatulong po talaga ito economically sa Pilipinas?
Well, makakatulong if the investment is managed well. Hindi makakatulong if it's not managed well. But the thing is, it will not, the benefit is not immediate. Syempre may ROI yan, no? Ano ba? Hindi naman niya kinabukasan, or I don't think that we will reap the benefits during the time of Bongbong if indeed it was managed well. But if it's not managed well, goodbye 500 million.
500 billion pala.
Well, kung may mga investment opportunities, why not invest it today from those financial institutions where they will draw the money and capital from for the Maharlika Investment Fund? Kukuha pa sila sa, I think, still Land Bank, ano, and,
Land Bank.
and Bangko Sentral. These are public funds pa rin. Bakit sila kukuha dyan? Ano? Now, investment funds do very well during good times in the global economy. This is the worst of times in the global economy with fears of wars and so on coming in. Ano? So they have not answered all the fundamental questions about the Maharlika Fund. Bakit nyo tinatayo? May pangako nga sila. Mayroong ibang naniniwala na this will really bring in the money, maybe the stolen money, kung it's stolen man yon, ng Marcos family and the other oligarchs, no? But why do you need a Maharlika Investment Fund if it's just to bring in the money? No, there are so many ways for them to bring in their money. The suspicion is very high about this fund, no? And yung mga pangako nilang napakaganda, napakabango, ay mukhang talagang pang cover up lang sa ibang mga plano na that will not really benefit the country.
All right. Thank you to everyone who participated in today's forum. Thank you once again to our panelists, Mr. Herman Laurel, Mr. Ado Paglinawan, Ms. Sas Rogando Saso, and Professor Ana Malindog Uy. Thank you.
Moderator, I just want to read a comment coming from a colleague here in Beijing, China, who's teaching in a university, no, and he's an American. So I want to read, if you allow me,
Go ahead, Professor.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let me read. This is very interesting comment, which I appreciate from my good friend, Mr. Mark Levin. He is a professor, no, and he is also he was awarded as a Friendship Award, China Friendship Award, by the PRC. But this is ang importante yung comment niya, which is very important for Filipinos to hear. Sabi niya, I'm an American who has happily and proudly lived and taught in the PRC for the past 18 years because he is a professor. My courses on the US, particularly our history, are quite critical, and when I am asked what is good about the United States, I answer that the most of our people are fundamentally good if we are told the truth, if they are told the truth. That's what he's saying. But that doesn't happen very often. I appreciate today's seminar, which provided much truth about the US relationship with the Philippines and China. Thank you. So thank you, Professor Mark Levin, for that very very inspiring and at the same time very gracious comment and appreciation that for this media forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Mark, for that wonderful comment. And once again, thank you to all of our audience here and our panelists. Like what Ms. Sas Rogando Sasot said, we might not have the black tie events, we might not have the cocktails, we might not have the best sound system, but what we have is the truth. Thank you very much.
That one, I really agree. We don't have much, but we will stand on what is the truth. That's one thing sure.
Maraming salamat sa inyo lahat, and we'll have future sessions again here in the bayan. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.